They don't allow themselves to say, I have this impact. But every person who downloads your podcast and listen to it, you're having that impact. Every person that reads somebody's blog is having impact. So I'm talking about these two things that person may not ever meet one of these people that they are having impact with.
Yeah.
They are. And so it's hard for people to internalize it sometimes to say, I have made impact. So that's how we can, if we are able to identify the impact that we make for ourselves, we'll be able to see early on that we have a legacy that we never even knew we had. And
Yeah.
it doesn't go back to saying, oh, I didn't do as much as I thought I could early on. We were doing stuff when we didn't even know it. And that's where we can then start to really filter down. And we should be looking at this not as I should have done more, but saying, how much have I done? Because we'll all be very pleasantly surprised to find out how much we've done.
Leo season's here, and if you've been craving the courage to show up and be truly seen, I made something for you. Safe to Be Seen is my new seasonal workbook filled with soul-centered prompts, mirror work, and grounding rituals to help you embody your light without fear. This isn't about performance, it's about presence, and you're ready. Download it now at my website, empoweredwithmelisahepner.org, or you can go to my link tree on my Instagram, and there is a link directly there. Emotionally unavailable. Okay, so I don't know if you've listened to any episodes, but the way I do it is I'll do a separate intro like that I record by myself whenever I'm going to post the episode, so we just kind of jump right in. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for your understanding.
Nice to meet you.
I was really excited when I was looking at your pod match this morning because I don't think I've gotten to talk to anyone really intentionally about middle age or mentorship or any of that. And I think it's come along at the perfect time, and I'm really excited to talk about this. So thank you for being here. I'm really excited to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm 45. So
okay, you're right in there.
Is that middle age? Because
yes,
I never know.
Qualify.
Okay, yeah, here we are. Well, and just with, man, I look around, I remember even in my 30s though, and I wonder if you've seen a lot of this, people like really believe like maybe they have a lot of years left, but the best part of their lives are over. And I'm like, honey, the best part hasn't even started. I can say that from 45. Like the 30s are the beginning of better, I feel like, because everyone's 20s are rough. That's what I try to tell people. Everyone's 20s are pretty god awful. And you're just learning so much, and it's full of struggle. But I feel like the 30s are the beginning of like adjustment, maybe some direction. Well, that's probably the two biggest things. I think a lot of your life starts in your 30s. You're a little more self-assured, I think. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and your
40s really have done that for me.
Yeah, in your 30s, you know who you are. So you're trying to figure out who you are in your 20s still. And people think, oh, I'd love to be back in my 20s. But that's when we're all like, oh my gosh, am I going to make it? Am I going to do what I'm supposed to do? Am I going to check all those boxes?
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a lot of pressure. And by the time you hit 30, you're usually like, I got something. Okay, I'm clinging on to this and I'm working with this. That may change later. It may be tweaked later, but you're good with something. And so you kind of know who you are. You figured out, there's a lot to figure out, when you're like teens through 20s, you're not just career. People think that's the only thing, but you're figuring out your religion, your spirituality, your identity and who your people are, your sexuality, and all of these different things that people take for granted. How am I going to date? Who am I going to date? What is the thing that I want to accomplish? That's a lot of pressure. So most people would not go back to the 20s.
I certainly would not. But honestly, the people who miss high school, couldn't be me, babe. Couldn't be me. I've not missed high school a single day. The only regret I have is not going to prom, because everyone said you regret not going to prom. I kind of wish I'd gone to prom. Other than that, hated high school, didn't want to be there. I was, going through it and was like, I don't even have the bandwidth for this. But God, it's funny because I never even put any of those things together. Like the 20s really are like spirituality has been very different for me. It's almost like I'm reliving my 20s in a different way. Like not the partying and whatever. I'm a lot more tired, but But I feel like all of those things that I felt really solid about by the end of my 20s came back around to where I unraveled every ounce of it. Is is that common?
So we never stop figuring out who we are. But usually we'll latch on to, so we'll say, okay, I'm good for right now. Here's where I'm going. And that's a relief to a lot of us. It
Mm,
could be as simple as, I teach a gender class, people saying, you know what, I now know who I'm attracted to, and I'm now comfortable to that, whatever it is. And I now know that I don't want to follow religion the same way I was raised. I may in the future, but I'm cool with where I am now. So people pick
yeah.
something that they're good with at that moment. And that's a huge relief. And that's a big thing in our identity. Now, when we hit midlife, we usually have a little bit of a bandwidth to reflect and say, is there something I want to go back to? Is there something I want to tweak or change or look at or develop further? And that's because we have that bandwidth to be able to do that. So if you're going back and looking at that again, that's normal. We all do that. And that's because we can. When you're in your 30s and right up to 40, you're working your butt off at oftentimes getting into an intimate relationship, sloughing off those superficial friendships and just keeping a closer tie with the people that we're finding are our people. And that's what we are spending our time and the job, whatever that is that we're doing. Maybe we want to get a more permanent housing. We're working towards all of that. People may add kids to the mix. There's a whole lot going on there that means you do not have the time to be saying, gee, let me tweak and like reflect and see what else is there. We're like just head down, moving forward. Once you pick your head up after you have a little bandwidth and you say, you know what, I'm pretty good at my job, I can relax a little, or I've got some of the basics that I set out to do, I have a little bandwidth, or my kids are at a stage that, they're good, whatever that is. And I like my friends that I have. I found my people, I'm working with them, and I feel secure. That's when you can open up some of the vulnerabilities again and say, let me look at this, that, and the other thing and work through that.
Yeah. Do you think, you know what I felt like one thing that I I'm going to say it this way. I don't know if I mean it this way, but I feel like I kind of held myself back a little bit by making my most intimate friendships, most of them from my workplace in my 30s, and that really kind of fucked me over because I was 29, I think, 28 when I started working in hospice full time. And the first hospice that I worked for ended up in kind of a toxic managerial, like the person above me. We were the same position when I started, and then she was promoted, and she was pretty toxic. But I had made very, very, very close friends there. Like, it was a smallish organization, so we were all pretty close. But like the chaplains and the social workers, we were just really tight. But when that job was gone, so was 90% of the people that like I really was like, oh, these are like family. And it was just totally, it ripped so much of my life away. And I kind of didn't want to put that much energy into work friends again after that. But I did that again. And I mean, it's fine because the next one, we're still friends and whatever all these years later. But I don't know. I feel like I should have put more energy into like making friendships in my 30s because even still, I'm like, I got a couple of friends. That's it. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people, but like the people I can go to with my shit, very limited.
That's how it's supposed to be. You
Really?
should not have, yeah. So when you're young, you're supposed to have, you have a much wider group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not all of them are the right fit. It's because you're
Mm-hmm.
saying to yourself, I'm going to go and do as much as I can with as many different people so I can see who my people are.
Yeah.
Then, and we have friends in a season of our lives. Not all of our friends are all four seasons. Like some of them
Yeah.
are just a season. Is that bad? No, that's okay. So we can't put judgment on ourselves for what we've done in the past and how we manage things. Your friends at work were what you needed at that time and who you needed. And
That's so
they were
true.
there. And if you're in such an intimate job as hospice, you need to have those people around you as an intimate core. You'll talk to people in the military who will say, yeah, I had a unit and we were so tight. Well, because you would die if you weren't, right? So
Right.
you were in that. You'll hear that from nurses, police officers, others. You have to form that bond. Now, you may move and say, you know what, hospice or this job isn't for me anymore. And then you have a new season of friendships. But, friendships, those worked for you at that time.
Yeah,
Is
they
that
really did.
so? Celebrate that. And
Yeah.
that's a win. That's not a loss. So now you may have different friends now. Does that negate what you had before? No. So what we need to do as we move on in our seasons of our lives, we'll find that we may have somebody that we have from way back when, in our early days. Great. But if you don't, it's okay. We should not place judgment on the number of years we've been friends with somebody. But if you
Yeah.
have one or two people that you can call in the dark of the night and say, come get me, that's what you need. You don't
Yeah.
need 10 or 12 people that you're like, oh, I'm not sure. You just need
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, some
one.
of the reason that I can't go to very many people with my stuff is because that was a narrative that I had created to push people away, obviously. But whenever, because I've spent this last year being very intentionally isolated because I was really fixing a lot of the way I think about interactions. And then I found peace for the first time in my life. And I was actually kind of afraid to step outside my bubble because I didn't want it popped. I didn't need the negativity or because I think kind of wildly different than most of the people that I know in real life about a lot of different things. And also, the way we're programmed to socialize, I think, particularly as girls, is to talk shit and complain. And that's, if I didn't have authenticity in most of my relationships. So these are still people who talk shit and complain. I don't really want to do that. So I just kind of just stayed home. I mean, literally, because I work from home now. But I've started to venture out and see my role in so many things within my interpersonal relationships, and that I really did push people away, and made myself believe that I couldn't talk to them about things. And now it's more of like I really have found what my people are, even if I don't feel like I have found all of them, because I believe that people are still coming in my life intentionally. But I know exactly what that should look like for me now versus
Good.
before I didn't. I didn't have, what's crazy to me is that how much I thought I knew myself, or, could identify so many things about myself. But I think it's because I always felt very confident as my career self. I could get in, figure it out, and then be really good at it. Like in hospice, still very well respected. Like people call me to ask advice and whatever. I mean, I still do bereavement work, but I made that my mission because it was kind of the only thing I knew how to do in life was to try to be the best at something. I just had so much trauma that I didn't work through for so many years. And so I feel confusing who self was with just this part of self. And that's where, when I reached burnout in every area of my life, I started to uncover, boy, I didn't know nearly as much about myself as I thought I did. Nor did I realize that I did not love myself the way I thought I did either. I was covering myself in shame and perfectionism.
Well, look at you now, right? You're like so many people. You hit the point of midlife and you say, oh, okay, I'm going to look at things differently. You've taken all of that knowledge, all of your skills, your values, and you've said, here's what I like and here's what I don't. And here's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a big deal. And people think of midlife as I'm just going to continue forward with what I already have. People
Mm-hmm.
don't really do that. People are always looking at self-improvement, and that's a good thing. We feel good when we accomplish this. When we're working through this, we get to feel better. And part of how we feel better is we get to know the impact that we make in the world. So that comes through looking at you're in the what I call the generativity stage. This isn't me making it up. It's from a famous developmental psychologist who said at midlife we're built to give back. And that's where we look at mentorship, volunteering, and philanthropy, the three forms of, being able to give back. Those are all three ways that we make impact in the world. We're leaving a legacy in all three of those ways. We're making our footprint in those three ways. When you're talking about who you want to be around, those are the people that you're making impact with. They're helping you to make your impact.
Yeah.
So at this point in your life, you're saying, I want to have a different outlook. And that's because you want a different footprint. You want to have a different legacy. You want to be thought of as somebody who makes impact in a way that you can now create. When we hit midlife, we have the control and the ability to create what we want from that. Does that mean it's easy? It means it could be exciting to say, this is a path I'm going to go down. And we all make impact way more than we ever know. Yeah. We may say, oh, here's what I did back then, but that's because that's where I was. We should be looking at all of that. Your hospice work, that's impact. You made a difference in the world. Yeah. You probably, everyone has, you've mentored people. That made impact. The ripple effect of that, it could be 6 degrees away from that person. You don't know, but it's something to look at. You probably have volunteered in places and given your time for a cause or something that meant something to somebody else. And you may not have even given yourself credit for that, but that made an impact. Every time you donate at the grocery store and round up, it could be as small as that. That's impact. We all have this that we're building, and in midlife, we are getting that itch to do it, and we are trying to scratch it as hard as we can. Yeah. And what I'm so excited about is that I see and I can talk to people about how they can find their impact and look at it and not just feel good for themselves, but see how they change the world. One little ripple can make an entire line of something go far back. So you may have thought, oh, in my 30s, I was just doing all this particular work. You don't know what impact you made. You could have made a whole tsunami. Yeah. And if you were to look back at that and maybe follow it a little bit or try to track it in some way, you'd see that you were way more impactful and important than you ever could have known. It's like It's a Wonderful Life, the movie. Yeah. And he found out how important he was to the town and he couldn't see it in that moment. Yeah. We all crave that. And we can do that for ourselves. That's kind of what I try to help people to do, is to see how they can make their impact. Most people call it legacy, but really our legacy is an impact.
Okay. So are you saying that it's like basically a natural midlife phenomena to like want to shift into that type? Okay, cool. I mean, you obviously work with people who are cognizant of that. Do you feel like there are people who feel a yearning for something different, something more, something outside of what they're doing now, but can't identify what it is? Okay.
We have a whole world of unidentifiers. So everybody, like you're podcasting, that was an itch that you needed to scratch. I need to get my word out there. Yeah. Every podcaster out there is doing that same exact thing. That is an itch. I must scratch it. Substack is a blogging platform that has grown exponentially. That is an itch people have to scratch. They're going and doing that. So it's these sorts of things that people won't really say, I'm engaging this. They don't allow themselves to say, I have this impact. But every person who downloads your podcast and listen to it, you're having that impact. Mm-hmm. Every person that reads somebody's blog is having impact. So I'm talking about these two things that a person may not ever meet one of these people that they are having impact with. Yeah. They are. And so it's hard for people to internalize it sometimes, to say, I have made impact. So that's how we can, if we are able to identify the impact that we make for ourselves, we'll be able to see early on that we have a legacy that we never even knew we had. And it doesn't go back to saying, oh, I didn't do as much as I thought I could early on. We were doing stuff when we didn't even know it. And that's where we can then start to really filter down. And we should be looking at this not as I should have done more, but saying, how much have I done? Because we'll all be very pleasantly surprised to find out how much we've done.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to this thought of like legacy has been very important to me almost my whole life. And I'm wondering if I'm strange for that because I don't know, it felt like a calling, like really young. I mean, something I talk about a lot is that I felt lucky my whole life that I had a sense of purpose instilled in me before the age of 5, and I knew exactly what the purpose was because I was going but before 5 I had already experienced every adverse childhood experience you can list on the form.
Wow.
And in retrospect, there was times I thought maybe I felt that way, like when I was kind of shaky in the purpose, I thought maybe I just felt that way, like that was just some weird coping thing. But I don't think that you can get that at 5 years old from some weird coping thing, or maybe you can. Whatever it was a driving force. So I have always had that, but it then became very important to me that I make a difference in the world. Like, period. Like, just, I have to make a difference. And there was a little bit late 30s probably where I was like, I haven't done enough. Like, I have to help more people. I'm making myself sound much more altruistic than I am. I'm really not. But I do. Well, because I'm not like, I feel like that created a picture of me that's not accurate.
But here's the thing, we equate making impact with altruism, and it doesn't, don't put those together.
Okay,
You
good.
are making your mark.
Mm-hmm.
That is you doing something for you while doing something for the world. So
Yeah.
are
And
you
the
giving
balance of
away
that
without?
feels heavy sometimes.
Yes, and it feels like, well, okay, I can give without having anything for myself. Am I saying don't do that? No. I'm saying you should be looking at what you get and what we get. Most people think of, if you look at a mentor, most people think of a nameless, faceless person and that they're being burdened somehow. But
Mm-hmm.
what is happening with that mentor is that when they have a mentee, that person is carrying a piece of them in them.
Yeah.
So that is an
I like
altruism. That
that.
is saying, I want a
Yeah.
piece of me to live on in someone else. And that's really what happens with volunteering and philanthropy as well. I believe in this cause. When I give this little bit of money, or I give a whole lot of money, whatever it is, I am making this happen. I have a piece in this. So
Mm-hmm.
when we look at all of this, I think that people think, oh, I don't have time for altruism, or I don't really feel the altruistic pull. Okay, don't. Think of yourself and the legacy you want and the impact you want to make, because we all have that desire.
Yeah.
And that's good. There's no negative in that. None at
No,
all.
absolutely not. There's really not. I just can I ask you this? What made you want to focus specifically on this time frame of life?
So I had a grandmother who I used to visit in Florida when I was a teenager, and she was like the light of my life. She was an amazing grandma. Everybody who has an amazing grandma can understand that feeling. Like I went down and I visited with her. She was amazing. And I went down once and she wasn't herself. She was the fun grandma. We went all over the place. I just would wear her clothes because they were cute and she was fun. And I
Mm-hmm.
went down and she wasn't herself. She was disheveled. She was unhappy. And I was like, what's wrong with her? Turns out she was depressed.
Yeah.
And somebody said, don't worry, we're going to fix her. She's taking a med that isn't working well with her. So when you come back next time, she'll be herself. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I went back and she was. And I said, that's it. I'm going to be a grandma fixer. So I thought aging, and I did. I went into this field. I decided to change my major. I went to work in research and I was studying everything no one wants to have or get. And that's because I thought that's what aging was, a whole bunch of stuff
Yeah.
nobody wants to have or get. And then I
Yeah.
went to a dinner party, so proud of myself, talking about all the stuff nobody wants to have or get, palliative care and end of life. And nobody says, ooh, I can't wait till end of life.
Yeah.
And nobody, it's all the stuff that's kind of cringy. And depression, frailty, Alzheimer's. So I went to this dinner party, and this is like in the year 2000 or something, when nobody was really talking about aging and end of life and palliative care. People thought you were trying to kill them. It was just,
Yes.
it's a really rough time for aging. And so
Agree.
I, he said to me, what do we have to look forward to? Why are you doing what you're doing? You're just putting a band-aid on nothing we want.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to myself, oh my gosh, he's right. I don't even know what I look forward to. So I went back to the drawing board and I said, oh, there's so much that's out there that nobody's talking about. And it starts in midlife. And it starts with this stage called generativity. So I really dug in and I started to look at mentorship in a big way because it's the first thing that comes from us. You have to generate a bit of you to put it out into others. It's not
Mm-hmm.
generosity, giving an extra scoop of ice cream that goes away when you eat it. You are taking a piece of you, and now that lives on in somebody else. And I was like, there's nothing more powerful than that. So I started to really dig into that. And then I found that a lot of people were saying, I have a hard time finding mentees. And
Oh.
I thought, you're kidding me. These were like people who are famous. These are people who've changed the world. And I thought, people would pay to talk to you. How are you having a hard time finding a mentee? It's because there was a disconnect. The mentors aren't hanging out with, young people starting out or even little
Mm-hmm.
kids. You can't go to a park and say, hey, kid, you want a mentor?
Not
That's
so
weird.
much.
So, exactly. So, I really started to look at this, write about it. Founded the Mentor Project with a bunch of other people, and we saw that it took off like wildfire. It went from 10 to 60 to 80 to 100 within a year.
That's so
It was
cool.
something that organically was happening because people wanted to give back and they didn't know where and where they could do it. And so I really got to see firsthand what it means to people who make an impact. So I wrote the book, The Mentorship Edge, and in it, the people that I was interviewing, I was talking about, the mentor's perspective as well as the mentee, but how mentorship looks
Yeah.
and how it really is a matter of somebody saying, I feel irrelevant. I feel useless. I feel like I'm not helpful. And showing how knowing that you're mentoring or giving back or having an impact shifts that thinking to, I have impact. I can now see where that is. I have a legacy. I have made a difference. And it's a power shift for all of us when we engage in that. And that's where that came from. That's where I started in with this in midlife and looking at it, from a perspective of positivity.
I love that. And you're just reminding me of all those movies that were really popular in like late 90s, early 2000s, but it's always like some elderly, bitchy person. And then some young person ends up in their life that they're like, first, they hate them, they're an annoyance. And then they start, well, no, if you're going to do it, let me show you the right way to do it. And then they like teach them stuff. And then all of a sudden, the grumpy person is like the sweet person and whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you're right. I think that it's not about feeling like you're teaching others. It really is about leaving a piece of yourself because it's kind of like passing down your recipe book. You
I'm glad
know?
you said that because what we think of as legacy oftentimes and mentoring is workplace. And nobody's going to remember an accountant 300 years from now. But every Thanksgiving, I take out the recipe cards from my grandmother. It's in her own handwriting, and I make that dinner exactly like she had it, even though I don't like some of the items on it, but I make the whole spread. And one year, I had my uncle come to visit, and he was eating his wife's Thanksgiving. And he was so moved that he ate the meal that he grew up on. It meant so much to him. So I am passing down what we don't even realize with those little recipe cards is we're passing
Yes.
down tradition, value. We're passing down the comfort that we feel when we walk in that door, that we know what we're going to expect, and that's magical. How many,
Mm-hmm.
those recipe cards weren't created by my grandmother. They were probably from her mother. She just
Mm-hmm.
happened to write them down and now I have them. So these things are really mentorship. These things are legacy. These things are impact. The impact on that little card, no one thought of that when they wrote it out. They didn't know they were making impact that could be generations, but that's what
Right.
That's what religion is. You didn't wake up one day and say, "Ooh, somebody brought a box of religion to my door and
So
I'm gonna,"
true.
that, and you
So
take
true.
what you want and you pass it on. And the same with morals and values. It's as simple as I go into some people's house, they take their shoes off. Some people don't. Everybody has their set of values that they have that they pass on to others. And it can be different everywhere, but it's how grounding is it to have a set of values, traditions, and morals and religion or spirituality that you can say, this is my bedrock, and I'm going to pass down what I like, and I'm not going to pass down what I don't like. I'm going to
Yeah.
take it, and it's a part of me that goes on with that. That's the real power. We've had that go on for centuries. I don't know. There might have been a famous accountant from, 3,000 years ago, but work is not where mentorship is the most important place. It's in our own lives.
Yeah. It's funny because just last night I was talking to somebody about my grandma because I was primarily raised in kinship care with her, but a lot of the things that stuck with me between her and her mother drive me crazy, but there's a few that still make me laugh. And I think about how like I've taught these things to my kids too now as a joke. Like I've told them things that were told to me as a joke, but it is I at least want the joking portion of it to still be carried down. So my grandma would use the words heavy petting. Like anytime she'd give me a sex talk, the words heavy petting would be included. And actually, in hindsight, I'm so proud of her because she was born in 1940 and had a very different view of what you should and shouldn't discuss with children. And with her children, she really didn't talk about it. But then she had a lot of teenage pregnancies. And when it came to me, she wasn't talking to my brothers about nothing. But she was like, let me talk to you about sex. And so I'm really like proud of her because I know it wasn't easy and she sucked at it. I'm not going to say she didn't. But really, I talked to her about sex up until she died. I mean, I could tell her literally anything and she'd be like, okay, well, that's fine. But she would always say heavy petting. And so I obviously am not going to like use that in a serious way with my children, but I make sure to say it. Like I joke around, I'm like, well, you know what my grandma calls heavy petting, or even like just little words that they came up with that mean this, or I pass that stuff down. And I mean, I
You know
do
what
it
you're really
jokingly,
passing
but
down? You know what your grandma passed down that you really passed down is talking about vulnerability and uncomfortable things. And so that may change over the generations, but having that talk that no one wants to have is what your grandmother started, that you are continuing. That's
yeah,
the impact. Now, it may change. The word heavy petting may be in there, but I bet you're talking about other uncomfortable things that didn't
yeah,
exist or that your grandma didn't talk about, but you learned that it is okay to talk about uncomfortable things that make you feel vulnerable. And
yeah,
to make a person feel like they can be safe around you when talking about uncomfortable things. That's what your grandma did. She said, "Ooh, I'm going to talk about something really uncomfortable, and you can come and talk to me about this stuff because even though I don't like talking about it, I'm going to talk about it anyway." That's
yeah.
power. That is powerful, and that is impact. And that is what you are carrying on.
Yeah, because
So,
I didn't even think about how often I referred back to those
yeah.
conversations. A lot of times for what not to have done, but still, it was still like I mean, I'm not mad at her for any of the conversations, but she was really annoying about it. But I I definitely have been like, okay, because I remember the first time with my kid, but we would talk about things in the car. I didn't even know that as a therapeutic modality until later. Like how great it is to not have to make eye contact and whatever. But as a teenager, we talked about lots of things in the car. So then when my boys, well, especially my oldest, when he like was in middle school and I was taking him to school every day and picking him up every day, that was our time in the car.
Yeah.
And I would just say the most outlandish stuff, and be like, okay, listen, my job is to talk about it. Your job is to sit over there and act like you're not listening and that you're so mortified that I'm talking to you about this stuff. Because, it's all, but like, I remember not actually caring that much that it was being said, but it's a little uncomfortable, so I have to act like, and also I had to, make sure I'm imparting upon her, like, I'm not having sex. So, I remembered all of that, and it did help me with talking to them. And I think the comfort that I'm feeling right now is the fact that they're going to do that too. Like, they're
Yeah.
absolutely going to reflect back on all those conversations, because I have been an open book with these kids. Like,
And
they are
that's a
very well
value.
prepared.
That is a value that was passed on. The value of being open, the value
Mm-hmm.
of being able to be a lifeline for somebody.
Yeah.
You are talking about them, of being annoying or whatever with both, but part of that you talk about is also a pleasurable thing, that
Mm-hmm.
I will talk about this even though I know that they're saying this is annoying. I'm not going to let up. That's a value. And that comes with caring. You are not being annoying in a way that somebody's saying, wow, she really just doesn't care about me. She's only thinking of herself.
Right.
That's something that you're passing on. That's impact. Now, most people wouldn't say to themselves, I make impact from that, or that I got impact from that. But just hearing you talking about this, I can see that legacy tree building.
Yeah. And I've just never thought of it that way. And I love that you've helped me reframe some things. I love that. And it is, I do agree that mentorship, I mean, first of all, it's always meant a lot to me because I had two incredible women in my adolescence that were such fabulous mentors to me. I mean, one of them just straight up didn't have most of her shit together at that point, but it was what I needed at the time, truly, because she really was the beginning of a foundation of like how to build self-worth, how to love yourself, how to whatever. I mean, it was a long journey, but and taking care of yourself, like she really imparted a lot of that. And then the other one was a lot of the same, but a lot of like um being able to receive love from other people. Like they're still in my life to this day. I've always known the impact that they made, and it was part of what drove me to be like, I want to leave my mark on this world.
Yeah. Yeah. You were all along seeking that out and acknowledging it, but without the words that went with it. Because nobody talked about this, right? Nobody talks
Nobody.
about this now. So
Exactly.
you can feel it, but it's very hard when you can't articulate it in a way that people can understand. And now I'm hoping that people will be able to understand that you can talk about impact and legacy in a way that isn't you seeming like you are trying to make money or something like that. The impact that people think of is usually monetary, or that it has to be altruistic. No, this is part of your development. This is part of who you are, particularly in midlife, that you are saying, this, I now know what I want to give back. I now know
Yeah.
those values that matter to me. I now know the impact that I want to make. And that's where it's a magical time in midlife for us, because we get to have that real control over who and how and what we give to others.
Yeah. Do you think that also we become so much softer, well, most of us around this age, because and on, because it's hard to maintain all the judgments that we made back before we knew anything? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
most of the people I know are a little softer at my age.
Well, we all have coping skills. I always tell everybody, do you cope the same way you did when you were two? 2-year-olds throw themselves on the floor, or they
I
go
sure do.
snatch something from somebody
Sure
because they
do.
want it. Most of us don't do that, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And you have used all of those years of even icky times where you did it wrong, or you made some um, errors in judgment and how you coped. But we learn from each of those. So by the time we hit midlife, we are what you're terming softer, but we're really coping better. We don't care as much. We're not thinking of the Joneses as competition.
Ugh,
We often
so
think
true.
of, you're running your race, I'm running mine. I've got my journey, you've got yours. You do you, I'll do me. And that's what may feel softer, because we're not judging the other person, because we're not feeling like we're in competition with them.
Mm-hmm.
That competition sloughs off. It goes away a bit when you hit midlife, because you're like, okay, it's all me now. And that's not a selfish thing. That's how can I now give me into the world? You can't do
Yeah.
that if you're competing with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do that when you are coming from a place that you're saying, this is what I want to give. And if you're saying, do I want to give this? Or is that person giving better? Or,
Yeah.
there's no competition when you're giving of yourself.
Yeah, but listen, in my 30s, I did not consider getting a little birdhouse with the little bird camera, and I did not spend all this time watching animals on the internet and sobbing. I'll be like, look at this golden retriever video, it's so precious. Or I was watching some kittens yesterday, and I was like, this is my life now.
You have the bandwidth to see good now.
Yeah.
And you have made peace with some of the things that you were grappling with. When you're able to say, I crave it and I seek it out, good things, and seeing life go on with the birds and how they make their lives and live their lives. That is because you have the bandwidth to do that. That's a positive part of, midlife, is that we shed some of those really ridiculous belief systems that we had. And, they're not ridiculous at the time, but they seem so when we've already been able to reflect and say, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe that I reacted like that. And that's when we have the ability to look at puppy videos and,
right.
All those
I really am going to have to get a bird house and a bird cam at some point, because I've seen some videos of them and I'm like, I feel like that's a good life right there to watch this. Do you feel like it's a common misconception that, like, after 50, there is, like, not as much of an evolution, or?
No. It continues to evolve. Our emotional trajectory goes up and it never goes down. When we look at our physical trajectory, it goes up and then it goes down. That's what most of us think of our life, is this trajectory, where it's an inverted V. It goes up very quickly, and then when you're pretty young, it starts to go down, and it doesn't go back up. So when we think of our emotional trajectory, we never say when we have a baby, I hope they can run fast when they're older, which is part of our physical trajectory. We say, I hope they'll be happy. Well, most people are, and most people can attain that. If we get off the track and get a little depressed, we can get better. We get right back on the track and we can keep going. So when we're in our 50s, we're at the peak of wanting to give back. That's where we're really saying, I'm going to try to get this legacy and impact moving and make this world the place that I want it to be. And I'm really surrounding myself with the people who align with that. And so it feels good every day you're out doing things. So when they have all of those stereotyped things out there that people are bird watching in their later years and they're playing pickleball and they're doing all of these things, it's because you're doing things that are social in the ways that you want to do it. You are looking at the world through the eyes of something that is wondrous. You can take a step back and say, oh, I want to appreciate the beauty in the world. These are the things that you start to really tap into once you hit 50 and older. And that's still evolving. It's still growing. And it's really a magical time.
Yeah. I think so much of what you just said is really just about shedding expectations. Like how many times I didn't do certain things in my 20s or even 30s because it wasn't cool, or it was like an old people thing. And now, like, I work hard to return to innocence and do things that make me feel really childlike joy, because it's unprecedented. There isn't anything that feels the way doing something silly can make you feel. But yeah, I feel like so many of the things I didn't do were just because of what somebody else would think or say if I did do them. And yeah, I'm definitely at an age now where, like, I literally don't care. I play pickleball. I love pickleball.
I do too.
And it's so fun. And I do a lot of things just because they feel silly or they're fun or whatever. And I don't care at all what anybody thinks about it. But it's like so funny to me that all of these things happen naturally. Like, this is like a life cycle that nobody even knows they're going through, but they are.
Yeah, exactly. And, as we age, we continue with this natural progression of doing things that may even seem stereotypical, bird watching and playing pickleball and those kinds of things. But our cravings and our desires follow a developmental trajectory, just like we follow when we walk and talk as babies, that we're continuing always to develop. And our emotional trajectory is the one that we never talk about. But that's the one where our expectations do change because, at the end of life, I've very rarely heard people talk about, I wish that I had something more. It was, I wish I spent more time with my kids, or I wish that I had pursued something that was a real passion of mine, but I didn't. Things like that. It's never money, and it's never things like that. It's always the very few regrets that I hear are things that are emotional regrets that they wish that they had tapped into that they didn't. But when people reflect and say, wow, I am so glad I spent this time with, all these people that matter to me. And all those people could be 3 people. They could be,
Yeah.
just a few people, but I'm glad that I had that. And when they can see some of the impact that they made, or see, a lot of times people will reflect and they'll say, I see my grandkids running things the way I did or doing things the way I did. And that brings joy. So there are these things that may not seem important when we're 30 because they seem small, but they're big when we're older.
Yeah. Well, conversely, even looking back at people I've lost, I don't wish they were still here to give me money. I wish
Yes.
I wish I had written down the biscuit recipe instead of
Exactly.
thinking I'd remember it forever.
Yes.
Like, because I can't just
Yes.
call you again and be like, I forgot again. Like, it's the things like that,
Yeah.
like, I definitely reflect on. And what a beautiful point. Thank you for saying that, because I think we have to keep that kind of, you don't want to do too much future forecasting, and you really do want to live in the moment, but
Mhm.
it's important that your moment is informed by something,
Yes.
that you're intentional about something. So I love the work you're doing. I truly do. Before we wrap up, is there anything you feel like you didn't get to talk about, you want to shout out something, leave a piece of advice, whatever?
I'd love it if people might check out the Mentorship Edge because it gives straightforward, real examples of how you can find mentors that aren't hierarchical, that are next to your left and to your right, and how you are probably mentoring and you don't know it. So people can find their impact and know that they actually are more relevant than they think that they are. So I hope they'll check it out because it can hopefully make a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out for sure. And I will make sure that I include any link that you have on your Podmatch. I'll make sure to put it in the show notes. But if there's anything that's not included on there that you want included, you just send it over and I will make sure to include that. And I've loved this conversation today, and I've taken several little pieces with me, just myself, so I know our audience is going to as well. And I also, I'm trying to stay connected with folk and collaborate in any way, if it's possible in the future. So, if you want to be friends, that's cool too. Just
Yeah, let's stay
whatevs.
in touch.
Okay, awesome. Well, I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday.
You too. Take care. It
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share.